finish off Chapter 4 notes, we're going to start with Section 6, which is microbodies and vacuoles. So you guys have done a lot of work on organelles, so I feel like you should be pretty confident with most of them by now, especially with your test coming up soon. So perosomes are membrane-bound vesicles, just like a regular vesicle, but instead of being just having fluid inside, or maybe the enzyme that breaks down everything like lysosomes, this one's going to have an enzyme that specifically breaks down fatty acids. So when this happens, when it oxidizes fatty acids, it produces peroxide. Peroxide is very toxic, so you're going to have an enzyme catalase that will break it down, okay? When it breaks it down, oxygen is going to be released, and that is those tiny bubbles you see on your wounds if you pour peroxide on your wound. So really the only thing you need to know about this that I will test you on is that they break down fatty acids in the production of peroxide. Those are perosomes. Okay. Vacuoles. You guys all talked about vacuoles the other day. They're huge membrane bound sacs. They're a lot larger than vesicles, okay? They're going to be like a storage unit. They're going to contain a lot of water, some sugar, salt, some toxic waste, even some color pigments for flowers. You're going to find these giant central vacuoles in plants and protists. This is an actual picture of a plant's central vacuole. Look how huge. That's huge. Absolutely huge. That's a central vacuole. It's got all kind of water, waste, some nutrients in there. It's just almost like a holding tank. I always think about when you watch a football movie, and for some reason at the beginning of the movie, like in the credits, they show like a water tank. I guess that everybody that loves football are supposed to have a water tank in their town. Section 7 is energy-related organelles. So you should already know which organelles we're about to go over. So life is possible because of the constant input of energy. Only two eukaryotic energy organelles. There are only two. There's the chloroplast and the mitochondria. So first up is chloroplast, okay? It uses light energy to make food in the form of carbs. This is the process of photosynthesis. We'll have a whole chapter on this later. But if you look at the board and look at the little circles, you have the sun, right? You have water. You have CO2. And then there's some oxygen mixed around there to make a carb, okay? Chloroplast, 3-membrane system. You're going to have the stroma, the thylakoids, and the granum. I will ask you where these are on the chloroplast, so you'll have to label these, okay? The stroma is the fluid within the chloroplast. The thylakoids are the small discs inside the chloroplast that are stacked up. Once they're stacked up, they're called a granum, okay? Thylakoids to me look like sprees. I don't know if you've ever ate sprees. They're usually in like a purple packaging at the gas station. That's what they look like. But again, the stromas is space. Stroma starts with an S. Space starts with an S. Thylakoids are the discs inside the chloroplast. And if you stack a lot of thylakoids up, it's called a granum. I think of graham crackers. You know, graham crackers are stacked up all the time, real nice and neat. So is a granum. So this is the inside of a chloroplast. So photosynthesis actually happens on this little membrane right here of the thylakoid. Chlorophyll is absorbed on that thylakoid membrane, okay? Right there. This whole process, which we'll get into it later, it's actually kind of neat how it works. This process of absorbing certain wavelengths of light makes things appear certain colors. So this process on the thylakoid membrane makes the plant parts appear green. So that's chloroplast, okay? If you need to stop the video and write, that's fine. I'm probably going a little too fast. Other plastids. So chloroplast is a plastid. So what's a plastid? It's a plant organelles that are surrounded by a double membrane, and they have various functions. So you're going to have the chromoplast, which is responsible for the leaves that we're starting to see or about to see outside right now. The autumn leaf color, fruits, carrots, things like that. The leucoplasts, they're colorless, and they store and synthesize oils and starches. So like the inside of a potato, those are leucoplasts. The last energy-related organelle is the mitochondria, which we call it the powerhouse of the cell. This organelle produces ATP, which is just the energy currency for your cells. It can change shape. It has two layers. The inner layer, or the inner membrane, is folded, and it's called the crista. Give me just a second. Okay, here's a picture of it. You can see the outer membrane is orange. In the inner membrane, the crista is in folds, and you can see it is in pink. So just like the chloroplast has the inner membrane is what absorbs the actual light and what actually does the making, the start of the making of the carb. This inner membrane does the same thing. This is how we are getting energy right now. It's how you're sitting up, it's how you're writing, how you're breathing, how your brain is functioning. It's all because of this organelle in, the millions of cells that you have. So there are a lot of mitochondrial diseases, okay? There's over a dozen that's been identified so far. This is when something can't metabolize organic molecules to produce ATP. So like I said, we don't get to make our own carbs, so the mitochondria actually we have to eat in order to break those things down to make ATP, which is energy. So a disease, a lot of these diseases, their mitochondria can't break down their food properly. Sometimes it happens partially. So many diseases of aging are due to malfunctions of the mitochondria. Section 8 is the cytoskeleton. Remember, this is like the highway of the cell. It's just everywhere. It helps things move about. It's the internal skeleton. It's made of fibers and filaments. It helps in cell shape, movement throughout the cell, and internal transport within the cell. It's what you see in green. There are 3 types of cytoskeleton that you need to know. Again, you have already looked at all of your organelles, and you have already hopefully read your textbook. The first one is actin filaments. These are long, thin, flexible fibers. They can occur in bundles. Each contain 2 chains of globular actin monomers that are twisted around each other. And I'll show you a picture of this in a minute. Usually actin filaments are just under the plasma membrane, which is just the outside of the cell. Move the cell by interacting with motor molecules. So it's almost like it reaches and grabs and pulls. Reaches, grabs, pulls. That's how actin filaments work. I'll give you just a second to write that down. Okay, moving on. This is what actin filaments look like. So another picture, you can see the myosin almost reaches and the actin moves about. Number 2 is called intermediate filaments. So now we're getting a little bit bigger. These are rope-like, not fiber-like, but rope-like, so they're a little bit thicker. So the filament varies depending on what type of cell we're talking about. Intermediate filaments support the nuclear envelope, the plasma membrane, and aid in cell-to-cell communications. Okay. So we're talked about they're made of different things depending on where they're at. So in skin cells, they're made of keratin, and that gives your skin strength. All right, moving on. So this is what an intermediate filament looks like. It's made of a bunch of fibers. It looks like a rope. So in the test, if you see rope-like fibers, that's intermediate filaments. The last one is microtubules, and so the name should give this one away. It has tube in it, right? So it's going to be something that's going to be hollow, just like a tube. Microtubules are small, hollow cylinders made of globular protein called tubulin, which has 2 types. It has an alpha type and a beta type. These come together and arrange themselves in rows. So microtubules have 13 rows of tubulin. I'll show you what it looks like in just a sec. But on your test, if you see something that says hollow cylinders, well, microtubules, they're just like a tube. That should give it away. So I just want to show you what this looks like really quick. It's called a dimer because both parts are put together, but you can see it's twirled around like a tube. The inside is hollow. Okay, moving on. Where do you find microtubules before cell division? Microtubules disassemble and reassemble as the spindle. So they're actually what pulls the chromosomes apart when we're replicating. We're almost done. I think we have 2 more things to go over. So centrioles are short cylinders of microtubule triplets. In animals, you will have 2 of these lying around at right angles to each other. In cell division, they'll line up on opposite ends of the cell, and their tubules actually almost like spurt out, reach those chromosomes, and pull apart. So they function to form the meiotic spindle. That's a centriole. You can see the microtubules. You can see 1, 2, 3. They're all hollow tubes. Some of you might have seen these in some diagrams that you've seen thus far. They're these little guys right here. They're at 90-degree angles to each other. And this is what the spindle comes out of, which is made of microtubules, and they reach the middle of the chromosome and pull it apart. Give you just a second to write that down. We got one more writing slide after this, and we're done. You can study. Okay. All right, cilia and flagella. We've already talked about the flagella a little bit. So these guys are hair-like projections that move a cell through liquid made of microtubules. Our upper respiratory tract have cilia that can help trap mucus and keep our lungs clear. So think about the little Addams family hand, the little hand that runs around by itself. That's what is all up and down our upper respiratory tract. So most of you probably have been in contact with somebody that smokes. Maybe you have somebody in your family that smokes. I hope not. I hope everybody in your family is smoke-free. Unfortunately, my father smokes. So I have like a permanent, image of him coughing. Like he just coughs all the time. Why? Does anybody know why? Because smoking burns your cilia off permanently. So it doesn't matter if he stops smoking now. He doesn't have cilia there to help get that mucus up. So he's constantly coughing, trying to get that mucus up because he has chemically burned his cilia off his upper respiratory tract. So don't smoke. There's another reason not to smoke. Anyways, each of them have a basal body and a motor. We've already talked about that when we went over prokaryotic cells. So this is a picture of our upper respiratory tract. If you're a non-smoker, which I hope you are. And these little guys help catch mucus to protect our lungs. If you don't have this here, just imagine the problems that you will have in your future. I'll leave it on this slide in case y'all need to keep writing this down, and we are done for the day.